Okay, here we go. Thank you everyone again for logging into the next in our series of Zoom classes that we are offering virtually for anyone that it was interested. No matter where you are, we're excited to have some folks watching today that are not even in the state of Texas. So that's exciting to have a bigger draw as we continue to do our best to respond to the downturn in our economy caused by COVID-19. These classes are brought to you in partnership between the Smithville Area Chamber of Commerce, the Smithville Public Library, and are paid for in large part by the Texas State Library Association. So we really appreciate our funders for working to help us bring this series, which started January 1st and continues through August 31st. So today we are excited to welcome back Linda Bauer, our instructor, who will be giving us a class on Photography 101. A couple of administrative points. If you want to ask any questions of our speaker, simply click on the chat in the below. You'll see the little word chat with a bubble above it. At any time, feel free to type in a question, and Linda, our instructor, will be able to see those, and she'll choose whether she wants to answer them as she's going along or at the end. But either way, she will address any questions that you have. Once she completes her class, she will have a Q&A at the end where you can just ask any question that you like. And so again, feel free to put anything into chat. This has been recorded. This is being recorded. So at the end, when this is over with, we will upload this to smithvilletx.org. Simply click on events and you will see our virtual class tab where you can see all of the classes that we have taught and register for any future classes. Having said all of that, I will turn the class over to Linda and let her introduce herself. Linda, go ahead.
Hi, let me go ahead and share my screen so we can at least have something else besides me to look at. So my name is Linda Bauer. I am a professional photographer here in the Bastrop area. I have been photographing since I picked up my first camera when I was about 9 years old. So that was just a couple of years ago. I currently photograph, I've photographed everything from weddings, which I don't do anymore, beauty pageants, fashion shows, a little bit of everything, but currently I specialized in volume photography. So that means like youth sports, little leagues, youth football, high school sports, junior high sports. So right now it's beginning of little league season. So I did, like this past weekend, I did 2 little leagues, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and then it's just been nonstop ever since. I did take a couple of years break, did some other stuff, and then I came back to it. And then in 2014, I moved away from Austin for a couple of years to take care of my dad. And then when he passed away, I came back and I decided I could not do the corporate world anymore. I was going out to be a photographer full time, what I love to do. It was kind of scary just taking that jump and just saying, sink or swim, this is it. So it's worked out pretty well so far. It was rough in the first couple of years, which is that way with any business. But so that is me in a nutshell. If, like I said, at any point, ask questions. I will say the hardest part about doing the virtual classes like this is I was in corporate education for a number of years. So we always have toys and games and interaction and all that stuff. It's been very hard to curtail all of that so that, you know, I can just teach. Okay, so we're going to talk and this is just going to be the basics. Like I said, I'm going to give some information, Q&A, and some information at the end. If y'all want to get in touch with me, feel free. If y'all have any questions or anything like that, feel free. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So first question, what is photography? Well, it is an art form. It's like painting and drawing. So photography is use your camera to see life in a different way, feel emotions, and record stories and events. It was interesting earlier today. I was looking through some old pictures that I did 15, 20 years ago. And then not that long ago, I've looked through some old pictures that I did when I was, 9, 10, 11 years old, or the first wedding I did when I was a junior in high school. And it's different to see the different stages that you are in your life and how you see things differently. We didn't have all of the available resources that kids have nowadays with photography. I've worked with the local 4-H group, and teaching them some photography stuff, working on some stuff with them. I was big in 4-H and everything else when I was a kid, and we didn't have anything like that. So this is just remarkable, that the things that are available out there now. So we're going to talk about some basic equipment, and I'm going to show y'all some, and I'm going to show you some of my equipment, which really some of it is not basic, but I'll tell you about the basic stuff. So cameras. When I shot film, I shot Canon. When I switched over to digital, I switched to Nikon. It's kind of funny. I was talking to one of the, it's just this big debate, which one's better, I was talking to one of the guys at the local camera shop here in Austin, and he said, majority of the people in Austin are Nikon. And it used to be because the Nikon lenses were cheaper than the Canon lenses. Well, now you can get other brand lenses, so that's kind of not part of the equation. So the cameras that I use, this is a camera I use 99% of the time for the volume. It has my volume, my tripod bracket on it. This is a Nikon D810. And then I also have a Nikon D500, which I carry. It's actually got a strap. I carry it. I have a belt that I put this on, so I carry a spider belt. So this is actually the one I use just for carrying around. And it doesn't matter. Nowadays they have the big craze now is the mirrorless. Okay, I've shot with mirrorless. I've worked with them. And these actually are fancy cameras for volume. Most of the people who do volume and have other people working for them have just the bare bones basic cameras, because when you set up for a volume shoot, nothing changes. You're on a tripod, you have your focal length set, everything is set, and nothing changes. Because one of the things that we do in volume photography is we extract all of our images and then composite them and put them on a different background. Okay, so we'll talk about lenses. So one of the most common lenses, sorry, I haven't scattered all over my desk for some reason. Most of them will come with a kit lens. If you buy a kit, it has a camera and everything with it. This wasn't, it was a kit lens, but I upgraded. This is a Nikon 18-140. I had this. The ones that I use, obviously, since I don't use that all the time, the one that I use all the time for walking around and for everything else, and this, I upgraded this lens on here is a 28-300. So that pretty much will get you anything you need. The one that I use for volume, and that's also a Nikon. The one I use for volume is, it's a Tamron. And Tamrons are really good. I did that when I was shooting film. I bought my body from Canon and I bought my lens and everything else from other companies. This one is a Tamron 28-75, which is perfect for what you need for shooting volume stuff, because you're not that far away, and that's all you need. Now, there are other types of lenses. They always say if you're starting out, one of the best lenses to buy is a prime lens. Now, a difference between a prime lens and a zoom lens or telephoto lens is prime lens is like this is a 50mm Nikon. That's it. It doesn't change. It doesn't do anything else. It has one setting, 50mm. But these are actually can be less expensive. It just depends. some of the other lenses. I have a really fun lens, but I couldn't put my hands on it, that actually, you can actually bend it and take different angles and stuff like that. I also, that's just kind of what I play with every once in a while. This is another one I've used for shoots, graduation shoots, but mostly I just play around with it. And this is a fisheye. And this is not even a big name brand because, like I said, it's just a play. And it just gives you some different effects and stuff like that. Now, when I'm out on the football field or sometimes taking pictures, or I do this at home too, if I'm out taking pictures of the moon and stuff like that, I like to use, this is also a Tamron. This is a 150 to 600 lens. And you also can buy what is called an adapter. This actually is a teleconverter, 2X teleconverter. So this makes this big lens, instead of going up to 600 millimeters, it makes it go 1200 millimeters. I have taken a picture of the moon where straight out of the camera, it looks like you zoomed in and you can just reach out and touch it. That's how far I can get with this lens. It's pretty amazing. But it also has pretty amazing prices. So tripod, that's the next thing. And I'm sorry I can't show you my tripod because it's in, all my tripods are in boxes in the van, ready to go to the next photo shoot. But a tripod is very essential to have for stabilizing, because you think no matter how secure you are, you still have a little bit of shake. There are ways to get around that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. If you don't have somewhere, you don't have a tripod. And the next basic thing you need is a light source. A light source could be the sun. It could be, the light in here. You can have constant light, or you can have flash. Some cameras have a pop-up flash on the built-in on the camera that's here. These actually do not. You can have a flash on top of your camera, like this is just a Nikon flash. Or you can have, here's one that goes on a tripod. It's a fairly smaller flash. Or you can have, this is the one I use all the time. This is a big, it's a Godox AD600. So it's a huge flash that can do all kinds of different things. So, and then these are all battery operated, because when you're out on a little league field or something like that, that is a big selling point, is the fact that you don't have to have electricity. So everything I own is battery operated. So don't have to deal with that. The last thing you need is essential is some editing software. Nowadays, if you don't have it, Adobe has the Photoshop packet for photographers. That's only $10 a month. Can't beat it. Don't quote me on that. I think it's only $10. It might have gone up a little bit, but it's a whole lot cheaper than getting the huge big packet. Okay, so we're gonna break off of that and get into a little bit about the lighting and stuff like that. So all photography is based on light. We're gonna talk about, Krista, you mentioned earlier the triangle. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So first part of it is exposure. That's the amount of light allowed to fall on the image sensor. So inside the camera, as parts are falling off of my camera. Okay. So that's based on how much light is falling. Try to get this angled right inside the light sensor from here. If you have too much light, your image becomes overexposed, which is the one there on top. You can see, I've seen some, and I should have pulled out some examples. I have some that are just way over, just blown out. One of the things that I shoot on is I shoot on a white background for use for extraction. And those have a tendency to, if you're not careful, to blow out because there's so much white in there. So the top one is parts of the image are overexposed, like the light coming in from the window, the computer monitor, those are overexposed. And then you have too little light. So at the bottom one, they're underexposed because you lose the computer tower pretty much altogether. You can't see the shelf or the sticky notes or the calendar or even what patterns on the curtain. So you need to make sure you can adjust all of that and figure out that for each of the scenes that you're in. So we're going to talk about the exposure triangle here in a minute. So exposure can be controlled through the aperture and the shutter speed. The aperture is the size of the gap of light that's let through to the lens. So it's kind of like your pupil. You know, you've seen the dilated, so it's open really big and then it closes. So aperture is measured in f-stops. And you can see over, I'm pointing like you can see that, sorry. You can see over on the middle and left-hand side, you can tell the difference, okay? So the top picture is a low f-stop. It's open wide, a lot of light is coming through. And the bottom one, it's pretty closed. So smaller gap, lower the aperture, the smaller the gap, the higher the f-stop. That's one thing that trips up a lot of the new beginning photographers is the higher the f-stop, the lower the aperture, and the smaller the number. So it's like opposite day all the time. So once you get it down, it goes pretty good. And then the shutter speed is how long the shutter is open. So, because I can't get, oh, you know. So you can see, I don't know if you can see this very good, but see it click really fast, really fast. Now, if I change, see, that was slower. So a long shutter speed is good if you want the dramatic flare. I tried to find a picture that I took a couple of years ago where we did long shutter speeds. We actually did like double exposures. One of the things that we did was we played with fire, and it's really kind of cool if nobody's ever done that, but it needs to be very controlled. You have a Brillo pad, and then you connect it to like a long chain that you can spin, and then you light the Brillo pad on fire, and then you spin it, and it creates this perfect circle of fire around your subject. So it's very tricky to do, but it's really awesome outcome. So a short shutter speed like freezes time. And I'm going to show you some of my pictures here in a little bit and show you some of the differences and stuff like that. So yeah, freeze detail. So it's just frozen second in time. You do this, you have a short shutter speed a lot of times when you're taking, you've probably seen pictures in newspapers and stuff like that of any athletic event where they're like, you know, making the dramatic catch in the air and stuff like that. So that's the short shutter speed, which is very hard to say. Okay. Our favorite, the exposure triangle. It's made up of your shutter, your aperture, and your ISO. So the higher your ISO, the more grainy your picture will be. So you have to adapt all of these and make sure that they are all kind of balanced. If you lower one, you have to raise the other to equal everything out to make sure you have a good picture. So like your shutter, f1.8, you have more blur all the way to f1000, it's less motion blur. And then here is a good picture of the depth of field. A shallow depth of field, that means that everything pretty much is in focus. Where you have a deep depth of field, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Your subject is in focus, but the background is out of focus compared to a deep depth of field where it's focused all the way through. Here is some perfect examples. I really like this because you can see over, I'm pointing again, you can see over on the top hand side on the left, you have 1/1000th of a second, f1.4, ISO 100. Okay, you can see the background is pretty blurry, out of focus, compared to the bottom one on the right hand side, which is like totally opposite. You have f8, 1/30th of a second. But you can actually, depending on your camera, you can actually get all of these settings by changing your ISO, changing the other things. You can get these to all come out. Even if you change one setting, you can do it to change all the others. That's one of the things that we're tested on when we get our certification for professional photographers is, take this image, here's your f-stop, and you have to figure out the rest of it, figure out the rest of the formula, and then make it match what they want you to. So, okay, so to get good exposure, if you're on manual mode, we're going to talk about the different modes that we're in. So I just already talked a lot about this, is you have to have the balance between your aperture and your shutter speed and your ISO. Balance everything out. Some of the newer digital cameras can run pretty good at a higher ISO without having the noise and without having the other things. Like for instance, my the 500 here is very good at low light photography. That's one of the reasons why I have it, because I also do events and things like that. And also, if you are on the sidelines of a football game, it's usually nighttime and not very bright out. So you just have the lights. Depending on the stadium, sometimes the lights aren't that great. So we talked, the triangle is about the exposure compensation and balance that out. Now, the main thing I wanted to point out here is on your cameras, you can have it where I'd have to actually look to see. You can have it, some of them are a little more upright than others. You can have it where it's aperture priority. And what that means is you pick the aperture, the camera picks the shutter speed. Or shutter priority, you pick the shutter speed, the camera picks the aperture. And these, even if you have one that's not interchangeable lenses, those can do that also. The biggest, most important thing, and I'll say this several times, practice makes perfect. Go out. It's so much different than what it was when I first started. When I first started, it was film. You had to take 12, 24 pictures, and then you had to go pay to get them developed and wait weeks and stuff like that. Now it's instant. The kids that I take photos of nowadays have no concept of film photography and everything. They want to see it instantly. So that's kind of the difference. It doesn't cost you anything. However, a lot of people think, well, it doesn't cost me anything, so I can just use, take 100 pictures to get that one good one. When you're learning, a good challenge for you to do is shoot as if you have film in there. You have a roll, you just loaded a roll of 12 frames in your camera. Shoot each picture like it's your last one. I know a volume photographer that when he buys the memory cards to put in the cameras, he actually has to buy one of the most expensive memory cards because they're hard to find. And that is a 2 gig memory card, because he said his photographers should not need more than that to take a full day's worth of pictures. So it's really interesting how some people think about these different things. So blur. Now, sometimes it's not obvious. It can be caused by moving too fast. Sometimes you'll take a picture and you think it's okay, it's done, then you pull it down. Sometimes it could be just camera shake. If it's on a tripod, when you push the release button down, it could shake just a little bit. Sometimes it could be, like for me, sometimes it's the athlete moving, thinking I'm done, and I'm really not. So in those cases, you retake the picture, or depending on what it is, there is some software you can buy out there that will help reduce and get rid of some of that. Not as extreme blur as the one on the left, but maybe the one on the right, you can fine tune some of that. Hand holding cameras, that's a big issue a lot of times because, they're long. Think about hand holding the camera with this and taking pictures. Now I've done it and they've come out good, but it's hard. Could be why I have a separated rotator cuff. So use a tripod or lean against something firm. Now here's something I was told you I was going to talk about this earlier. If you don't have a tripod or a building to lean against, I mean, it could be a building, it could be, a pole, it could be anything. If you don't have any of that, create your own. So stand with your legs far apart, get that low center of balance so you're steady, and then take it. You can have remote triggers. You can have ones that connect to the camera. I didn't bring any out, but I do have all different types of those. And sometimes those are good because like I did this with my family. We were taking family pictures. I had the remote trigger and I was in the picture for the sibling picture, and I just had the trigger down by my side and was just snapping the pictures. Well, my brother was getting upset because nobody was telling him what he was supposed to be doing. I said, well, just be ready all the time and you'll be good. So focus, main thing with focusing is, okay, so if you're focusing on this, focused on the celebrations, I guess that's candy. You look at the very front and he's not focused at all. Depending on what your objection is for the photo shoot, that could be what you want, but sometimes it's not. Okay. Some cameras have a macro switch that you can, if you're taking really close ups, there are also macro lenses you can purchase to get really close up pictures. So talking about movement, the longer a picture is being taken, so the longer the shutter is open, the higher the chance that there's going to be some blur. So that's why you have to have a fast shutter speed, like when you're doing low light photography and things like that. Because it doesn't take but a split second and things are out of focus and all blurry. Okay, getting the right light. So getting a picture that's not too bright or too dark, finding the right exposure. So making sure your aperture and your shutter speed are suitable for that situation. So you can see there's a trend here. So you have to make sure that everything is balanced. And there are different ways you can do it. Cameras will have a built-in exposure meter inside. You can actually get a light meter. Hang on. Right, you can actually get a light meter like this to test for lights if you really want to get serious and into this, or you could be like some people, and this we call it. It's always had this name of chimping. So I don't know, but really, you take a picture and you look at the back and you go, a little too dark. Okay, let me adjust. Take a picture. I'm getting closer. So like for me, because I do volume and I do it at the same places a lot of times, I pretty much know if I go to this school and I'm in the gym, here's what my settings are going to be. If I go to this school, their gym has different lighting. Here's what my settings are going to be. You just kind of practice makes perfect. You just kind of pick that up and know. All right, the rule of thirds. So framing your scene, it's deals with all psychology and everything else. So as people read left to right, and most of the time your eye is going to go left to right. So whatever you want your focus to be, make sure they say make sure it crosses or it's in one of these 12 triangles, 9 triangles. I'm sorry, squares. They're not triangles, they're squares. So a good example of this is I was on the family farm a few years back and my niece was there and she had her camera because her kids were all running around. And she said, yeah, I'm trying to get this, but I just don't, I think it's my camera. I just don't take good pictures like you do and everything else. And, I said, well, I haven't been doing it as long as I have. And I said, okay, let's do an experiment. Stand side by side, take a picture out at the barn where the horses are. You take your picture, I'll take my picture, and then we'll compare. She goes and takes her picture and, the horses, and there's a tree, they're all like right in the middle of the frame. I take mine it's off on the side. And immediately she goes, oh my God, yours is so much better. I said, all I did was just move over a little bit. It's all in how your mind and your eyes makes your mind believe on a thought and how your picture is laid out. So here's one of mine I did a couple of years ago. So there's several things going on here. First of all, if you drew the squares, this number 4 here is pretty much in the following the thirds, theory of thirds. Also, stop motion. I mean, you see all these kids have their feet up in the air, his hair's flying backwards. This, keep in mind, these are like 4 to 6-year-olds playing. So little big kids out there playing, got it down. This kid, you can tell he has older brothers because he's got all the moves, all the gestures and everything. So something else to think about. You want to vary between landscape and portrait. You don't want to do the same thing every time. And a lot of it will depend on your background. Follow the lines. Like for instance, this telephone, with the full telephone, it's following the line of the desk, and it's kind of following the line on the wall a little bit. If you go think about bridges and things like that, or overhead roads, the arch, that's a perfect example of lines. I've taken some awesome pictures of the arch years ago when we could even go on the top of the arch. So think about that. Also, this is one of the things that I love to do is zoom and take pictures of obscure things. I did a contest several years back where I took pictures, and I'm big on taking, like, just a close-up picture of something. And I did for a whole week on my Facebook group. I put these pictures on, and I had somebody, tell me where these places were taken. So it's like Chicago, and they had a Chicago fire boat, and I took just a close-up of one part of the boat. So it's just trying to figure out what these things are. There used to be a game like that years ago. So you can change your angle, do close up. Here's some. So here's just a football helmet sitting on a bench. I was taking pictures of that game, and for some reason that just caught my eye because everybody else is further down the field, but one player left his helmet there. I think he was getting worked on with the athletic trainers, and then the towel sitting there. One of my favorite projects that I do is hands, especially senior citizen hands. Most senior citizens, especially the women, go, oh my God, my hands are so ugly. I hate doing that. But I think they're awesome. This picture here, this lady has since died. Her kids love this picture. I took a picture at my church one time of the oldest living member of the church when they were quilting. It was just close up of her hand and the needle going through. And her daughter cries at least once or twice a year. She'll tell me, she'll send me a message. Yeah, today was Mom's birthday, and I just looked at that picture and just cried so much because that's what she loved to do, was quilt. So hands are just awesome. So point of view. We always have a saying that, zoom with your feet. So in other words, don't rely on your zoom lens to zoom in and out. Walk closer, get up there. So if you look at the first little guy here, that one is taken at eye level. And then obviously this one is taken from up above. Obviously this guy, the photographer, is up above the rim, up at the top. And this one, I do quite a few of these. This is taken from below, looking up. It tells a whole different story. Each one of these tells a different story. Now, here's the one of the cheerleader. And I'm not sure how this started, but years ago, they started laying down in this cutie pose. And it is a nice pose. The only way to get this good pose is for me to lay down in front of them. So here I go, up and down all the time. So it's eye level, but I'm down on the ground with them. Now the football player, this was this past year. First time I ever did this football team, we did a location shoot at a Caterpillar dealership. This is the offensive and defensive lineman. They brought a sledgehammer for props. It was really cool. So if I were to take it head on, it would give a totally different look than this. I actually I went to lay on the ground and realized it was gravel. Someone went to their car and grabbed me their sunscreen thing out of their car, and I laid on it. And the guys were just blown away that I was laying on the ground and crawling around on the ground to get these pictures. But it gives a total different look of him above me looking down at me with that sledgehammer and nothing but that yellow, the caterpillar, and the sky above. So some final things to remember, then we're going to go into some Q&A here. All of these, they're just guidelines. So practice makes perfect. Figure out what you like, figure out what you want to do, what aspect you want, what look you're going for. But one thing you always need to do is think about your framing and exposure, because those are the ones that don't change, but everything else changes. Change your angle, change your perspective, everything else. And there is always something to learn and discover. I mean, you could take classes every day forever and still find something new to learn. Okay, now here's my information, and we are going to open it up for Q&A. I'm sorry, I'll put that back on, but hang on. How do I go back? There it is. Okay. Chat. That's what I lost the chat room. Sorry. Light boxes. Yes. I actually taught a class on product photography and on light boxes. And ironically enough, I happen to have one sitting right here. This is what I use for my product photography. Hang on, I got to get the chat out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. So this is a light box. It's collapsible. It folds up. Hang on. The nice thing is, figure out what the top is. Okay. The nice thing is, you can take pictures from the front. You can take pictures from, oh, I do have it upside down. No wonder. Okay. Take pictures from the front, or you can take pictures from the top. It actually opens all the way up. It's got Velcro. It's got lights. These are the lights in there. They're really nice, really bright. It's got a dimmer switch. It comes with a background. So you can have it there. It has a white background in it. And then what I do is, like, because I engrave and sublimate and decorate cups and things like that, small items. So I actually have this cool little thing here, which is, it's battery operated, and you can't really tell, but it turns. So I can make a video of a cup or a water bottle or something that just turns around and is decorated on all sides. All of this I got on Amazon. Now, when you go to Amazon, the most important thing you want to think about is the size, because they can make it look really big, but it's not really big, and it's going to mess you up. You need to know what you're photographing and what size box you need. I think this box that I got here, I'm thinking I only paid like less than $40 for it. So the thing I really like about it is the lights are really, really good. You really just cannot see that. They're the fluorescent lights. The nice thing is they have a little plastic cover over the top. I purchased one once that was like 20 bucks. It didn't have that plastic cover. I plugged it in, it worked. I took one picture, I unplugged it, turned it back on, plugged it back in, turned it back on, it didn't work anymore. So, buyer beware when you buy stuff from Amazon, as always. But it has two of them in here. And like I said, it has a dimmer switch. I don't have it plugged in right now, but it has a dimmer switch that you can do all that with. So I'm really bad about not taking my product photography, even though I teach it and everything else. So I decided if I keep this assembled at all times in my office, then that probably will make me more apt to take my pictures whenever I get the a product finished. Any other questions? The best lens for family, children, lifestyle. Also the best place to purchase them. I lost the name of the store. Adorama is one. I was about to say B&H, but I don't think B&H. I have to look that up and I will let you know, Krista. Do me a favor and send me your email and I will look that up. I get their newsletter every day and it's one of those things you see all the time and you don't think about it. Now, I will say you can get a lot of this equipment. It doesn't have to be name brand. Like I have some equipment that's just, a Chinese brand flashes that aren't the Nikons. And a lot of times they're perfect for stuff. Now, you'll hear people talk if you read photography magazines and stuff like that, where, they have to get the pro photo lenses and they're the most, flashes. And they're the most expensive and they're these type of flashes. Okay. So yeah, you can buy all those. They are close to 2,000 a piece. Or this is a new company. It's a Chinese company, but hey, it's awesome. It's Godox. And actually, because I have to have 3 photo stations and 3 full setups, I have 3 sets of all of these. So these, it's a Godox 600B Pro Light. And this cost me, I got it on a special deal, a really special deal, when they first came out. But these themselves now are like 800 a piece. Not that bad at all. And these little ones, which is a 200, so it doesn't put out as much light, but still it works. You can use these on a volume shoot too. These are, I think these are about 400 or so. Smartphone tips for business looking to photography, photograph their inventory. Okay, well, I will tell you that, it's great having the newest and latest things, but it's also a real pain because you have to remember all your passwords, set all that stuff up. So, but I just got the new iPhone 12 Pro and I just activated it and set it up today. So I do have to admit, I actually have cheated on some of my products because, especially if I'm getting ready for a shoot or something like that, or sometimes I don't feel like pulling out all of this stuff to take my product pictures. When you have this right there, super easy, it takes great videos. So a lot of my videos are done with the phone. One of the things that really irritated a lot of, and rightly so, irritated a lot of professional photographers is when a couple of years back, Apple actually in their commercial had a tagline that said, now you can be a professional photographer too. They got in trouble for that and had to take that down. But luckily, I'm a member of a very, very large professional photographer organization in the US. So, but the cameras on these are amazing. I've taken one picture with it and, so I haven't done much with it. I haven't had time, but yes, so I think April is going to put on the, that class, put it on with this group, or you can also go and look at the, oh my God, sorry. I did not know my phone was on. Look at the Photo Fest page and look at the product photography class. She took her screen back. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so
like everything changed.
I have typed in the questions that I received by the 2 people that were not able to attend the class. So are there any other questions from those of you that are in attendance today? And I'm not seeing anything else being typed in. The ones I typed into you, Linda, were texted to me by the 2 people that weren't able to make the class. So it looks to me like unless we have some other questions.
Yeah. Best tips for new photographers.
Oh, there you go.
Practice. They say you should go out and shoot at least 1 hour every day. So just anything and everything. I mean, go out and walk down the street and take pictures of everything. When I went back to the family farm to take care of my dad, they live a quarter mile back off of the highway. And I would go in the morning to go, get the paper or go do something. It would take me sometimes half an hour or more because I would stop and take pictures of the dew on the field and the spider webs and flowers with dew on them and just, all kinds of obscure things. Barbed wire fences, and, the close up of the barb. Toys. Oh my God. I had such a blast. The toys were great. We always had, you can have like gopher moles and stuff like that, but they were down where I grew up, they crawdad holes, the little mounds of dirt. And we had some gophers down there too. But so like I would get little men, little army men or whatever, and I put them like they're, being sucked up into the dirt, and you tell this whole story. I did this whole thing. I had Spider-Man clinging from the orange tree, swinging from the orange tree. And then, oh man, don't even get me started. I saw these earlier. Don't even get me started on the whole elf on a shelf. And I actually have two. I have elf on the shelf, and then I have an elf that is a UT elf that I got. So they went and hung out in the horse feed. They hung out in the horse trough by the horses. I did that quick so the horses would eat them. They hung out in the trees. They hung out in the candy dish. They were all over the place. It was awesome. So even things like that, you can do them outside, natural light. You can do them inside with flash, but just let your imagination just go crazy. Now, one of the things I will mention, and I do have to say, I bought this because I had every intention of getting out and having fun and doing it, and then I haven't ever had time. So this, hang on, gotta be careful not to drop it and get it out of its container. This is what they call a lens ball. And you can actually go on Facebook and look at, type in lens ball, and you'll see there's a couple of groups out there. What this does, this creates some really, and the company is called Lens Ball. It creates some really cool effects because like I can look through this and I see April's picture on the computer, but it's upside down. So everything you see through it is upside down. So imagine taking pictures through this. I mean, there are some stunning, amazing pictures. I have a friend, that's what got me into this. I have a friend that would go all over and take pictures with this. So this is really fun to do. So there's a lot of really cool things to go and just play with. And this wasn't that expensive. This, I have no idea how much this was. I got it off of Amazon. They have a couple of different sizes. Now, I've had this, like I said, for several years and haven't really done anything with it, but it even comes with a little base that you can plug into a light stand, screw into a light stand so that you're not holding it. So, but if you get a chance, go check out Facebook and Lens Ball, Lensball. Amazing stuff out there with those.
I have included a link in the chat box. If you click on that, it takes you to our Eco Photo Fest page. Look on there and you'll see two classes offered by Linda, one on macro photography and the other on product photography. That product photography class in particular really goes in depth in how to photograph. For example, if you have a business and you're interested in taking photographs of your inventory to place on your website or social media pages. So I encourage everyone to check that out as well and see the many other classes that we're offering. We are coming up on the end of our class and I don't see any other questions in here, but I will remind you that we have multiple classes coming up over the next several months, all the way through the end of August. I encourage you to visit our website, smithvilletx.org, click on events and go to our virtual class page. You'll see all of our previous classes there ready for you to watch. And all of our future classes are there for you to easily register for. I want to thank Linda Bauer, our speaker today. And again, I want to thank the Smithville Public Library, as well as our funders groups, the Texas State Library Association. So thank you all for being here and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.